Mike Malone and the Denver Nuggets parting ways. It kind of came quite literally out of nowhere. If I have the picture, I think I still do. Steve's jaw quite literally hit the floor when I broke the news to him that it had happened. Steve, like I said, this was a shock to everyone, and I would imagine the Nuggets players and fans included of this firing. What is your reaction to this news, and what does the future look like for Mike Malone?
Honestly, when you told me, the first thing that I thought of was, what did he do? Because this isn't a move that a franchise makes 3 games before the playoffs without there being a reason. Now, it's interesting to note that the Denver Nuggets are owned by the Kroenke family. Josh Kroenke is the president of basketball operations for the Denver Nuggets, and that family also owns the Colorado Avalanche, the Rams in the NFL, Arsenal Football Club over in England, and it is important to note that these franchises keep hold of their coaches and they give them chances. And we're 2 years removed from a championship in Denver. You and me have talked about Mike Malone being a possible top 5 coach in the NBA right now. Mm-hmm. So the relationship that he had with the other people in the front office, the relationship that he had with the players, like, was there something we obviously didn't know about going on? And it's interesting to note that when Josh Kroenke was asked about why they fired Mike Malone, he said, and quote, "Wins can mask a lot of issues." And I think that kind of speaks to the severity of maybe what was going on in Denver. If even the owner is saying, we've been heading this direction for a long time, this is not new, we were going to do this at the end of the season anyways. So Cam, to me, it's hard to wrap my head around. And I think that's the most I can give you at this point. I still don't understand.
Yeah, and another piece of this is that the Nuggets are also not bringing back their GM, and a lot of the reason for not bringing him back and Mike Malone is that they butted heads a lot and had a lot of issues. Now, as you said, the current president, he's not taking questions during interviews with the national media, but he's just talking to the Nuggets media, which it gave me a lot of vibes of when after the Nickelodeon stuff with I can't remember his first name, with Schneider. I don't know. I can't think of his first name. He did an interview with someone else from Nickelodeon, and
Rob
it was
Schneider.
Rob Schneider. No, not Rob Schneider. Not Rob Schneider. That's an actor. The producer. He was a producer who did like a whole bunch of different Nickelodeon shows, Drake and Josh and iCarly and Victorious. Anyway, he did an interview later with someone else, another Nickelodeon actor, and it was the most staged, like, softball lob questions I've ever seen. Like, it was clearly an effort by the PR team to get it under control. So this was not a legitimate questioning. I mean, he was never going to give us any sort of real pieces of information. But what I find very interesting is that he says by firing Mike Malone, he is trying to get the best squeeze, to use his terms, out of the rest of the team.
You know, I became comfortable with the thinking of, you know, let's try to shake this tree and squeeze as much out of this as we can. And that's where we arrived at with the decisions today.
How is firing your coach minutes before the playoffs start a way to get the most out of your franchise? And he says, you know, it's a lot of, I believe in the guys we have, and I think they'll be able to get past this.
I have a complete belief and trust in our group of players that are in there. And I have complete trust and belief in our assistant coaches and their ability to step up into different roles. And maybe if their voices are a little louder in certain areas, maybe they can squeeze some of that juice that I've been talking about.
And if Mike Malone was this hard-nosed coach who was getting the most out of his players, and like you said, we had argued was a top 5 NBA coach as of right now, like you said, then there clearly was something we don't know about, or there was more to this toxicity stuff. And if you look back throughout NBA history, teams who have been to the finals that have fired their NBA coaches, you look at like the Bucks, who now people are saying have 0% chance to make the finals. You look at the Raptors when they got rid of Nick Nurse. He's not even who hears about him anymore. And he look with Philadelphia, and now look at Toronto post Nick Nurse, like where they're at since that's been fired, have never been the same place. Look at Phoenix after they fired winning coach of the year, Monty Williams. Yeah, I almost said Daryl Morey. Monty Williams. They're now in disarray with Kevin Durant leaving. It's not a great look after a championship coach leaves, what happens to the teams in the years that follow. You had said this to me the other night that, was Jokic not involved, but how much did he know?
Right.
What was his opinion on it? Did he give the okay and the green light? If there's ever going to be a superstar player or a best player on your team who you are not going to consult or who isn't going to care one way or the other, it's going to be Nikola Jokic. Now, I have also heard that he liked Mike Malone, but again, I mean, I'm not in the inner circle. Who knows?
Right.
But there's really no angle you can take this where it makes whole 100% sense.
Well, now, like you had just mentioned, if Jokic and Mike Malone were tight, what does this mean for Jokic and the relationship between the front office there? Josh Kroenke talks about this 4-game stretch that they just went on where they lost 4 consecutive games. They're in a really tight race in the West, and it just doesn't. Why would you want to bring in an inexperienced coach? Like, not saying he's inexperienced in his coaching career, but within the world of the NBA, why would you want to bring in a coach, an assistant coach, at the most important time of your season if you're in that tight of a race? Do you think this impacts their ability to make a deep playoff run now that they don't?
They're done. They're done.
Oh, wow.
They're done. They're
cooked. Goose is cooked.
I can't imagine the only way that they would be able to make a legitimate run is if Jokic has an all-time postseason or goes to a place we have quite literally never seen. And another thing that
Josh
Kroenke says is I believe in the rest of the coaching staff and that voices will become louder once they're in those elevated positions. So he clearly, the only issue and the only thing that brought about this firing was Mike Malone. And like he says, we're trying to get the most out of this team, get the most squeeze. We didn't have a good run post the All-Star break. We're on this weird 4-game losing streak.
We went on an 8-game win streak right before the All-Star break. But since then, I think we're 11-13. We've lost our last 4, and we're trending towards a direction that I thought would probably be a very near end to our season in the near future.
You're 2 years removed from a finals, and you're gonna say because you lost a few games in March, you're gonna fire your head coach? Like it makes absolutely no sense. And again, unless everybody within Denver was just out on Mike Malone, I don't know how.
I didn't hear about that. Did you hear about that?
No, that's the thing. Like, it came from nowhere. And again, the what I thought was the driving factor was the GM and Mike Malone had issues. So instead of firing one or the other, they fired them both. But from this interview, it clearly seems like it was only Mike Malone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like I'm the biggest Mike Malone advocate, but I'm not anti-Mike Malone. But again, this just makes no sense. I don't know logistically how you came to this decision. Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.